Hi everyone and welcome to Horror Spectator. If you're new here, consider subscribing. We dive deep into the darkest, most chilling real-life horror stories out there, and if you're a returning viewer, I'm so glad to have you back, friend. Dim the lights, get comfortable, and let's head back into the mountains. And remember, viewer discretion is advised. The first story, Martin's Tale, the Great Smoky Mountains. My name is Martin, and what I'm about to share happened in the Great Smoky Mountains about 5 months ago. And it came down partly to carelessness and partly to something closer to bad judgment. It didn't happen directly to me in the way you might expect, but it involved me enough that I feel like it's worth telling, especially if it helps someone else take certain things more seriously. I've always been the kind of person who enjoys climbing, camping, and spending time outdoors. It's something I've done for years. Even though I'm not from the Appalachian region, I grew up around forests, so I'm used to the kinds of rules that come with being in those environments. I won't say I believe every story you hear about the woods, but there are enough things that don't have clear explanations to make you think twice. Around that time, I had planned one of those short trips I like to take every now and then. Nothing extreme, just a few days away, and I had already booked a cabin in the Smokies. I was planning to bring my dog, Greggy, like I usually do. He's used to it, and he handles those environments better than most people I know. The thing is, I'm 20 and I still live with my parents, so I'm in that phase where I want my independence, but I don't have the financial stability to fully move out yet, which means there's always some level of compromise involved. When I mentioned the trip at home, my mom immediately suggested that I take my cousin with me. He's 18, but he's had a rough time. He's repeated a few years in school, gets into trouble often, and a lot of that comes from the situation at home. His parents argue constantly, and it's the kind of environment that affects you whether you realize it or not. I grew up with him, so I know him well, and while I care about him, he has a tendency to act without thinking, to push boundaries just to see what happens. And in a place like that, that kind of behavior can get you into serious trouble. Still, he's always looked at me in a way that's hard to explain, almost like I'm someone he listens to more than others, like an older brother figure even though we're close in age. So when my mom insisted, I agreed. But I made it very clear from the start that if he was coming with me, there were rules and not the kind you can ignore when you feel like it. I told him that I would be the one making decisions out there, that if I said something needed to be done, it wasn't up for debate, and that the reason for that wasn't control, it was safety. He agreed without much resistance, and I could tell he genuinely wanted to get out of the house for a while given how things had been going with his parents. So for once, he didn't argue. The first couple of days actually went better than I expected. We settled into a routine quickly. During the day, we'd go out for hikes, nothing too intense, just enough to explore the area. And in the evenings, we'd cook outside on a small stove I had brought with me, then spend some time talking or playing cards before turning in. Greggy stayed close the entire time like he always does. Calm, alert, never straying too far. It felt normal, almost surprisingly so. And I remember thinking that maybe bringing him along had been a good idea after all, that maybe he just needed a break from everything else. But like I said earlier, there were rules and I made sure he knew them from the beginning. The kind of rules people who spend time in those mountains tend to pass along. Don't respond if you hear your name called from somewhere you can't see. Once it gets dark, you stay inside, you lock everything, keep the lights low, and you don't go wandering around outside for no reason. He knew all of this. We had gone over it more than once, and at least on the surface, he didn't seem to take issue with any of it. This happened on the third day. It was already dark. We had closed everything up. Shutters in place, door locked, and I was in the shower when I thought I heard something. It sounded like the front door opening. Not loudly, not violently, just enough to catch my attention. I paused for a second trying to make sure I hadn't imagined it. Then I rushed a bit, finished up quickly, and called out to my cousin asking what he was doing. There was no response, no movement, no voice, nothing at all. I stayed there for a moment longer trying to listen, holding still, focusing on every small sound, but there was nothing. I was finishing up drying off as quickly as I could, already feeling that something wasn't right, when I heard it. A whistle, short, clear, close enough that there was no mistaking it. That was the exact moment my body tensed. It wasn't just the sound itself, it was the certainty that came with it. I knew that whistle had come from my cousin, and I had made it very clear before we even arrived that this was one of the things we did not do. We don't respond to whistles and we don't make them. Not out there, not at night, not under any circumstances. Combined with what I thought I had heard earlier, the door opening, the idea that it might actually be open now hit me all at once, and I didn't stop to think. I didn't even get dressed properly. I just grabbed a towel, stepped out, and rushed downstairs as fast as I could. When I reached the bottom, I saw it immediately. The front door was open. I ran toward it trying to understand what was happening, calling out for my cousin. And then I saw him coming out from the edge of the forest, saying he was a bit concerned because he had opened the door to let my dog out and now he wasn't coming back. I can't fully explain the feeling that hit me at that moment, but anyone who has a pet will understand it. It was instant panic. I called out for Greggy and I heard him, not barking normally, but making a sound that was closer to distress. Something strained, something wrong. I didn't hesitate. I ran back inside, grabbed the firearm I had brought with me, and went straight toward where I had heard him. I found him on the ground lying still with a deep cut across his leg. At the same time, I had the sense that something was very close to us, something just out of sight, but there was no time to process it. I picked him up immediately and ran back toward the cabin, shouting at my cousin to get inside. We got in, shut the door, and locked everything. By then, he had already realized the situation he had put us in. He kept apologizing over and over, saying he knew he had made a mistake. I didn't respond to that. Not because I didn't hear him, but because I knew I was too angry to say anything useful in that moment, and there were more urgent things to deal with. I focused on getting the first aid kit and doing whatever I could for Greggy. We had no way of leaving right then, no quick access to a vet, so all I could do was try to stabilize him as best as possible and hope we could get him proper help in the morning. The wound was bad, deeper than anything I had dealt with before, and it was hard not to think about how much worse it could have been. Couldn't have been more than 15 minutes after we got inside when something hit the cabin door with a level of force that made the entire structure shake. In that instant, it was clear that whatever was outside was trying to break it down. I couldn't tell if it was an animal or a person. There was no way to know, but the intent was obvious. Acting on instinct, I fired a shot upward, not aiming at anything, just trying to create enough noise to scare it off whether it was human or not. Right after that, I told my cousin to help me move the sofa, and we pushed it against the door, adding whatever we could to reinforce it. We checked the windows quickly, made sure everything was secured, and then stayed inside blocked in, waiting. Throughout the night, we heard repeated impacts against the cabin. Not constant, but enough to make it clear that whatever was out there hadn't left. There were also sounds moving around the structure. Pacing, shifting position, always just beyond what we could see. We had no signal, no way to call for help, no one nearby who could hear us. My cousin was in full panic at that point, barely able to stay still, and Greggy was getting weaker, his breathing more shallow as time went on. I don't think I've ever been more afraid of losing him than I was that night. Eventually, around 6 o'clock in the morning, the noise stopped, not gradually, just gone. We waited anyway about an hour, making sure it wasn't coming back, listening carefully before making any decision. When I was certain it had been quiet long enough, I told my cousin to grab everything he could carry and we moved. I picked Greggy up and held him as carefully as I could, and we ran straight to the car. We didn't look back, didn't stop, just got in and drove out of there as fast as possible. Once we were out, we contacted the authorities immediately, explained everything, told them there was something in that area with enough strength to damage ST.